She sued me for breaking HOA rules. But I don't even live in her HOA. 3 minutes later, her entire power crumbled in court. I was enjoying my morning coffee when a thick envelope marked with legal insignia landed on my doorstep. First, I thought it was a mistake, but inside was a lawsuit and actual legal complaint accusing me of violating HOA regulations. The funniest part? I don't even live in an HOA. According to the papers, I was being fined for not submitting an approved paint color for my house, for installing a non-regulation mailbox, and this one really made me laugh for leaving my garbage bins out too long. At first I assumed it was some clerical error, but the plaintiff's name quickly explained everything. Her name was listed as president of the HOA from the next neighborhood over. This woman, let's call her Karen, had a reputation. She once tried to write up a pizza delivery driver for loitering when he parked in front of her neighbor's home for more than 4 minutes. She was known for walking around the neighborhood with a clipboard, snapping photos of garden gnomes and unauthorized Christmas lights. But I had never interacted with her because she didn't live near me. She lived across the road, separated by a city-owned greenbelt. Her HOA ended at that boundary. Apparently, that didn't stop her. She wrote in her complaint that my non-compliant modifications to the exterior of my home had a negative visual impact on properties within the HOA. She also claimed I had agreed to community standards by purchasing a home within visual range of the HOA zone. According to her, if I could see the HOA from my property, I was spiritually and ethically bound to follow their rules. Those were the actual words. What she failed to understand or just refused to accept was that my property had been built 6 years before her HOA was ever established. It was on land zoned entirely separately. I paid no dues, signed no agreements, and had no ties to their organization. But that didn't stop her from trying to claim jurisdiction. The next few pages in the filing demanded I repaint my home, change the mailbox, and pay $4,800 in backdated fines, plus $300 per day going forward until compliance was met. She also included a CSN desist order regarding the placement of my trash bins on collection day. She claimed they violated the visual harmony of the street. The kicker: my trash bins are not visible from any part of her street. She had driven over, taken pictures, and used those photos in her complaint. I later found out that she had been doing this to other non-HOA residents too, sending threatening letters, pretending to represent some kind of city council authority. But this was the first time she actually tried to take someone to court. A few neighbors had given in over the years. Out of fear or confusion, some repainted their homes, paid small fines just to make the problem go away. But I wasn't going to be another one of her victims. I wasn't going to bow down to someone who clearly had no legal ground. What made her think she could get away with it? According to a mutual neighbor, she'd been bragging for weeks that she was finally putting an end to all the eyesores ruining her property value. She had this delusion that the HOA extended its influence to neighboring blocks, and she was determined to set a legal precedent, even if it meant suing someone who had never been part of her association. As I read through the legal jargon,
my disbelief turned into anger.
This wasn't just an annoying woman with a superiority complex. This was harassment, plain and simple. She had filed a fraudulent claim against me. She expected me to back down like the others. I wasn't going to back down. Within hours, I contacted a property rights attorney and sent him every piece of paperwork I had, from the original deed to the subdivision plat maps, showing my home's independence from the HOA jurisdiction. I even found city zoning documents online proving that my lot fell outside their area. My home was in a completely different zoning classification, established years before her development was even approved. The lawyer reviewed it all and said, "This is laughable. We'll crush this in minutes." Still, it was surreal, having to defend yourself in court against someone who was operating purely on arrogance. Her claim was rooted in nothing but entitlement. She didn't want to control her neighborhood. She wanted to control everyone she could see. She believed her property line extended as far as her imagination would allow. What she didn't count on was someone pushing back. She had bullied people for too long, and it was time someone shut her down the right way with facts, law, and absolutely no fear. The moment my lawyer saw the paperwork, he almost laughed. "She's suing you under HOA bylaws," he said. "But your property isn't even listed in the HOA's Articles of Incorporation. It's like Walmart suing someone for not wearing a uniform when they've never worked there." We immediately began preparing a formal response. My lawyer drafted a motion to dismiss based on lack of jurisdiction, misuse of civil procedure, and harassment. Attached copies of my property deed, the county zoning maps, and the recorded history of the neighborhood's development timeline, all proving that my home had never been, and could never be, part of the HOA. To make it airtight, we also obtained the HOA's own boundary map directly from the county clerk's office. It showed black and white, plain as day, that the HOA's last parcel stopped more than 500 feet away from my lot. There was no overlap, no easement, no shared access, nothing. Just a green belt, a public sidewalk, and then me. She had no legal standing. None, still. We had to go to court because she refused to withdraw the case. In fact, she doubled down. She submitted additional paperwork accusing me of obstructing community unity and deliberately lowering local property values. She even added screenshots of my backyard shed, claiming it did not match architectural aesthetics of her HOA standards. It was comical but also dangerous, because this woman was abusing the legal system to push personal control. The court date came fast. I showed up in a clean shirt, organized binder in hand. Karen walked in looking smug, with her stack of color printouts and typed HOA regulations. She strutted like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on neighborhood purity. Then the judge entered, and reality began to unfold. My attorney opened with a firm but professional statement. "Your Honor, the plaintiff has filed an HOA violation lawsuit against a homeowner who is neither within her jurisdiction nor contractually bound by her organization. This is not only baseless, it's reckless." He presented the plat maps, the zoning records, and my deed-all filed with the county, all showing I was completely outside her HOA, my lawyer added. "This is like trying to fine someone for not wearing a seatbelt in a car they don't own, on a road they've never driven." Karen tried to interrupt several times, but the judge held up a hand. "Ma'am, I will give you time. Let him finish." Once my lawyer rested his case, she took the floor. And that's when it got really unbelievable. She began by stating that good neighbor policies required all visible homes to follow a unified aesthetic. She argued that because my home could be seen from the HOA entrance, it had to respect the spirit of the community. She even accused me of being a rogue homeowner who thought he was above the rules. The judge blinked slowly. "Is the defendant's property within your HOA jurisdiction?" Karen replied. "No," but the judge cut her off immediately. "Then you have no standing. Case dismissed." Just like that. Under 3 minutes into her argument, it was over. Karen stood there, frozen. No dramatic objection. No last-minute argument. Nothing. She looked like someone who had just realized the world didn't actually revolve around her clipboard and fake authority. She tried to protest, claiming she would appeal and escalate to the city council. The judge calmly informed her that filing another baseless case could result in sanctions and a harassment. Counterclaim. We didn't even need to continue arguing. The facts had done all the work, but my lawyer wasn't done. He leaned in and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to file for legal fees and damages due to abuse of process." The judge nodded. He approved the motion and scheduled a separate hearing to determine costs Karen would now owe me. She stormed out of the courtroom, red-faced and silent. Her stack of documents flapped behind her like a sad little cape of imaginary power. Outside, I got several pats on the back from neighbors who had heard about the case. One even whispered, "Thank you for standing up to her." We've all been waiting for someone to do it. It wasn't just about winning. It was about setting a boundary legally and symbolically. Her reign of intimidation had finally met someone who fought back with facts. Instead of fear, this wasn't just a victory for me. It was a line drawn in stone. A week after the case was dismissed, I received a formal letter from the court awarding me full reimbursement for legal fees. Karen had been ordered to pay over $3,400 in damages, not just to cover my expenses, but as a penalty for filing a frivolous lawsuit. The ruling cited a gross misuse of civil litigation to enforce non-existent authority. She had tried to control what she didn't own, and now she was paying for it, literally. At first she went quiet. No clipboard walks, no printed notices taped to people's doors. The neighborhood felt oddly peaceful, like a storm had finally passed, but beneath the surface, things were changing quickly. Word had spread not just about the case, but about the details the court had uncovered. Specifically, how Karen had used her HOA position to target homeowners outside the HOA, sometimes under false pretenses. A neighbor from 3 blocks down came by one morning with a letter in his hand. Looked identical to the one I had received. Months earlier, demanded he remove his satellite dish and repaint his door within 30 days or face escalating fines. His home, like mine, wasn't part of her HOA. He had just assumed she was connected to the city somehow. She had forged a version of the HOA letterhead and signed it with her full name and title, making it look official. He wasn't the only. Within 2 weeks, 5 other residents came forward with similar documents. Some had paid, some had ignored her. Some were just too afraid to push back. But now they weren't afraid anymore. I gave each of them my attorney's contact info and copies of the judgment. It wasn't just a personal win anymore. It was becoming a class of victims standing up. 2 years of intimidation. The moment people realized Karen had no power over them, the entire illusion collapsed. Then came the letter from the city. Apparently, a formal complaint had been submitted by my attorney regarding her conduct. Since she used HOA letterhead and legal threats against non-members, she triggered a city audit into her HOA's operations. The city demanded their financials, correspondence, history, and documentation for every fine issued over the past 5 years. That's when the real mess started, turns out. Karen had not only overstepped her authority with non-members, she had also been charging illegal fees to her own HOA residents. People started comparing notes. One household was paying $75 per quarter, while the house next door was billed $200. Another family had been paying compliance adjustment fees that didn't exist in the official bylaws. She had created her own internal rules and was enforcing them, with no board approval. When the HOA board members, most of whom were older, quiet folks who never challenged her, got wind of the audit, they held an emergency meeting. For the first time in a decade, more than 20 homeowners showed up. Karen walked in, expecting her usual authority. She walked out stripped of her title, unanimous vote, immediate removal, permanent ban from holding any HOA leadership. Roll again. They even put in a clause requiring third-party approval for any future fines or notices, to prevent any single person from weaponizing the HOA again. As for Karen, she didn't take it. Well, she tried blaming others. She claimed people were out to get her. She insisted that she had only been trying to maintain standards, but the documents spoke for themselves. The fake fines, the forged notices, the bullying tactics, the court ruling. There was no defending any of it. She retreated into silence after that. No more threats, no more printed demands. Her manicured lawn stayed the same, but the air of power she once carried vanished. People waved at her less. Some crossed the street when they saw her coming. It wasn't revenge. It was accountability. A few weeks later, I hosted a small neighborhood get-together, not in defiance, but in celebration of normalcy. Oh, no agendas, no lectures, just people talking, laughing, and being neighbors. One older couple brought a cake that read, "Free it, lasts no more, HOA madness." We all laughed. Someone asked me if I had plans to move now that the drama was over. No, I said. I fought for this peace. I think I'll enjoy it. But I did keep one copy of the court judgment framed on my office wall. Not out of pride, but as a reminder. Some people think power gives them the right to control others. But real power, that comes from knowing your rights and refusing to be bullied by someone hiding behind fake authority. Karen sued me to force control. 3 minutes later, she lost everything she built on intimidation. And this time, the neighborhood finally got their peace because someone stood up and said, "No more."